Hello darlings, welcome to another episode of Dining Through the Decades. In this week's episode we are going to be making stuffed mushrooms, which is actually from a 1936 cookbook called The Calendar of Cooking, and I'm going to be using this each week. I forgot to mention in last week's episode, but I also used a recipe from here. So without further ado, I'm very excited to try the stuffed mushrooms, so let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut off the stems of these portobello mushrooms and then scoop out the inside so it's just the shell that's left. So we're just going to remove the stems. Alright, and now I'm just going to use a little teaspoon and just going to scoop out the inside. Now be really careful not to poke through the mushroom, you don't want there to be a hole in the other side. So we're going to really make sure that we've removed almost all of the inside, so it really is just a shell. And don't worry, all of this mushroom that we're taking out, we're going to be cooking it and putting it back in. Alright, so about this much, so it's a little hollow shell, that should be enough. I hope I didn't break that. Alright. So now that we've scooped out the flesh from inside the mushroom shells, we're going to be putting them in a baking dish and adding a couple of drops of olive oil and putting them in the oven, moderate oven, 180 degrees Celsius, for about 7 or 8 minutes. So just a little drizzle on each, and we'll pop them in the oven. Now that the mushrooms are in the oven, I can start preparing my mixture for my stuffing. So we've got a tomato going in here. We're using up the rest of the inside of the mushrooms. You can also add in some chicken or fish or any other leftover meat that you have in the fridge that you want to use. And then we've also got an onion going in and some breadcrumbs and fresh parsley from the garden. I've just got some leftover vegetarian chicken here that I'm going to chop up and put in the frying pan. Add some oil into my pan, and now I'm going to add my chicken. And then I'm also going to chop up my parsley as well. Alright, parsley into the pan. Chop up this onion, finely diced, and then add that in with the chicken and parsley. Alright, that was the timer for the mushrooms. Okay. smelling good. I've just taken the mushroom shells out of the oven and they're just lightly cooked. So I'm going to keep working on the stuffing, and once that's all completed, put it into the mushroom shells and back in the oven. I'm going to add in my mushroom insides here. I'm just chopping up those stems because we're not going to waste anything, it's all going in. All right. And adding in that mushroom. Now the recipe says that we can moisten, if needed, with tomato or tomato puree. So I'm just going to finely chop this tomato and add that in, and then we're also going to add some breadcrumbs to soak up all of that moisture. Don't forget to stir the stuffing. Alright, I've chopped up the tomato really finely so it is pretty juicy, and I'm just going to add that into the pan. Alright, just mixing that together. And then we can add in just enough breadcrumbs to make the mixture completely bind. Now, this recipe doesn't actually call for a certain amount of ingredients for anything, so you just have to eyeball how much you think you need. So it makes sense. I'm only going to use a handful or so of breadcrumbs, but otherwise just use what you have on hand. Use the leftover meat that you have in the fridge and parsley and just really whatever tickles your fancy to put into some stuffed mushrooms. Okay, mixing those breadcrumbs through. So, it doesn't call for any salt and pepper, but I am going to add in salt and pepper because I know that it's going to be lacking without a little pizzazz. So, half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of salt, and then some lovely black pepper. And I'm going to add a little bit more of those breadcrumbs because it's not dry enough. I'm only going to use a handful or so of breadcrumbs. You can add it all in. Smells good. Now, before we stuff the mushrooms, I've got to try this and see whether I need to add in anything else. Yum, that's really good. Yum, yum, yum. Oh, this is going to taste so good. Alright. Wow, this is going to be so quick. I'm just going to fill these mushrooms up and sprinkle with some breadcrumbs again. Then we're going to put it in the oven. I've got a combination here of cornflake crumbs and dry breadcrumbs, so just toasted, and I'm going to sprinkle this on top. Now I do have leftover stuffing, but you could just eat that as is or add it with some vegetables or something because it's delicious. I'm just going to add a little bit of butter on top of each. You could even add some cheese if you want to as well. But I'm going to do it as the recipe calls for and just a little bit of butter. Now that our mushrooms are ready, we can put them in the oven for about 15 minutes. Okay, the mushrooms are done, the timer's gone off. Let's see how they are. Ooh, they smell really good. And they look delicious. Yum. Ooh, I can't wait to try. All right, I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control and I think I like it. Oh, I am so excited for this. It smells divine. That is so good. Oh wow. That is so homely. The taste of mushroom is just so delicious, and you can just get a hint of the parsley in there as well. Lovely homegrown parsley. I'm gonna have to make heaps more of these. Now that I have some leftover mixture, I'm gonna go out and buy some more mushrooms and stuff them, or maybe I'll just put the stuffing on everything because it is so delicious. I highly recommend making this. Hope I'm not dribbling food everywhere. Wow. As always, I will leave the recipe in the description box below, so if you do make these, please let me know. Tag me over on Instagram. You can hashtag diningthroughthedecades if you want me to have a look. This was so delicious, and I hope you do try it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye! Good, I hope I didn't get any parsley on me. Parsley on me. Ooh, is this hot? And I'm just gonna wolf these down. Ah, so crunchy! Don't put that in there, Jen.